Hi there, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Chaotic Witchy Mama podcast, where we will be discussing paganism, witchcraft, alongside parenting. I'm your host, Haley, and I will be posting episodes every other week on Mondays, so twice a month, and I look forward to sharing my journey and getting to know you. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am married. I have a 3-year-old boy named Hunter, a 2-year-old girl named Isabella, and a 9-month-old boy named Fisher. With that said, I pre-apologize for the current and future sounds of children playing in the background. It's inevitable in my household. I do not have a private space to create this podcast, but I am doing it anyway, walking around my house while I'm taking care of my children. So, as a mother and as a wife, my family is really into gardening and homesteading because we are really doing our absolute best to become self-sufficient and not have to rely on any government or even like stores. Eventually, we will have and be able to do everything for ourselves. We also plan on homeschooling our children, and with homeschooling, it'll be more of an unschooling type program. If you know anything or if you've ever heard anything about unschooling, it's basically the idea of not copying a school classroom setting at home, and it's like child-based learning, so you learn about whatever the kids want to learn about at that moment. Some people assume that means your kids are going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to do math and reading, so we just don't ever do it, right? Well, not exactly. There's going to be at least some kind of structure, I'm going to make sure my kids learn how to read and they learn how to do math. And I'm going to also make sure they know how to research. I mean, that's really what everything is about. Learning is about learning how to learn, not just do as you're told. At least not what I think. I think we all need to learn how to be critical thinkers and use our own minds and learn life skills at younger ages. And with the homestead we'll be doing and unschooling, our kids are going to learn all kinds of life lessons that I never did, that I still haven't, because I'm going to be learning right alongside these kids. So, enough about me. Why am I making a podcast? Well, you see, the thing is, I have been struggling to find a podcast that incorporates paganism and spiritual stuff with children. There was a time about 4 years ago when I was pregnant and I was doing all my research to see what type of witchcraft you can do with your kids, and all of this research that, looking up children and witchcraft, how to explain witchcraft to your children, how to explain paganism to your children, and I just kind of started doing it. I don't know. I just kind of started figuring it out as the days went on, because I really wanted them to be incorporated into my life and what I'm doing. And it was so hard for me to try to hold on to this spiritual practice and my kids, because I was trying to keep them so separate, and I could never find the time to go hide in my room long enough to, meditate and get into the mind space and do elaborate rituals and spells. And it just never worked for me, because even if my husband was watching the kids downstairs, I can hear them. So I could just never get in the right mind space that you're supposed to get into, or at least that they say you're supposed to get into. But then all of a sudden, I'm like, why don't I just do this in the living room with the kids? Why not? And when I made that shift, everything changed. My paganism and witchcraft became fun again. My kids brought joy back into it. Instead of frustration because I couldn't finish, it was pure joy because I could feel the happiness that my kids were feeling because I was letting them in. So now I do things like I sit and meditate in the living room, and my kids will notice and be like, "Mommy, what you doing?" And I'll tell them, "Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth." And I'll make it really exaggerated, and I'll make funny faces with my nose. I'll scrunch my nose up when I'm breathing in, and I'll stick my lips out really far when I'm pushing my breath out really hard, and just make it fun. And then we do a little breathing game for a few minutes, and then she gets tired of it and goes away, and then I can finish my little meditation, and we're both happy. It's a win-win. And so once I realized that it was actually going to work out better for me to just do my practices directly in front of my children and sometimes directly with my children, I just kind of started making it up as I go. Almost everything I do has some intuition in with it. You know, I've done all of the research on like history and association and lore, and I'll get into all that stuff at some point or another, I promise. But for the most part, I just use my intuition, my kids' intuition, and I just kind of do what feels right for me, for my family, and making this a family practice with the kids has just been wonderful. And if anybody is as open as I am with their paganism and witchcraft around their family, then this would be a great podcast for you, because we are going to talk about all of the ways that I already have incorporated this lifestyle into my very young children's lifestyle, but all the ways that we can and will in the future, because my life is in the process of a huge change, and I'm looking forward to sharing it. I really, really want to share it. I want to share the process. It's really hard to find all the information that I've been looking for. So we're just going to be learning as we go and sharing that. Because, you know, paganism, witchcraft, but also I've mentioned homesteading, right? So I've got like 3 separate gardens in my 1/2 acre yard, as well as chickens and ducks and rabbits, all for like homesteading purposes, right? So our chickens and ducks, you know, eggs, of course. We've had meat birds, aka the chickens that you eat eventually, right? You have them for 6 months, you butcher them and you eat them. Same with the bunny rabbits. The bunnies are food and fur. You can sell the fur, eat the rabbits. The rabbit poop is very, very high in vitamins and nutrients for the gardens that we have. And it can go straight into the garden. It doesn't have to be composted or anything, which we have compost too, of course. But the rabbit poop, it doesn't have to be composted. It can just go straight to the garden. So there's just so much stuff that we're already doing and look forward to doing more when we get land, which we're looking into. Oh, look, here comes the kids screaming. Hi, Hunter. Hi. I'll be right back. I came back. My 3-year-old wanted to talk about fishing. He's got a toy fishing pole. He's really excited. So yeah, now I've been basically practicing with and in front of my kids for 4 years, and I am very confident in the idea of sharing my journey and spreading the knowledge, and just hoping that something that I have to share can help somebody else along the way. And not only would it be nice if some piece of my journey could be helpful to somebody else, I am also very open and willing to hear your input, tell me a little bit about your practices. Give me some information that you guys do or like, or anything that you want me to talk about. If there's anything in particular you're interested in trying to figure out how to share with your kids, I can talk about how I might try to figure it out. Give a little bit of advice that you can do with what you will, you can take it, you can rearrange it and, take parts of it and figure out how to make it fit. That's what a lot of my practice is. I get a lot of ideas and I makeshift them to work for me. Like when you're reading a spell book, instead of following the spell exactly word for word the way it says, make it your own. Make a little bit of it yours. And that's what I'm looking to do with this podcast. Share a little of me, get to know a little of you, giving advice, taking advice. This is a very open community here, and I am inviting all versions of pagans, witches, and spiritual people of any sort. All welcome here, and I would love to hear back from anyone at any point. So I think that's all I got for now. My next episode is going to be talking about how post-pregnancy I started incorporating witchcraft into my life again after quite the dry spell, because having kids makes practicing spirituality kind of hard sometimes. And I look forward to sharing with how I did that and how I got back on track and how I've been staying on track. And that does not mean I haven't fallen off, because there's lots of time spans where I don't do all the things I say I'm going to do. And when I talk about my daily spiritual practice, it's definitely not a every single day daily, okay? It's as much as I can daily. So, like, instead of 7 days a week, somewhere between, let's say, 2 to 5 days a week. 2 is really low on that, but usually I try to keep it like 4 or 5 days a week. So, just throwing that out there too. Daily spiritual practices does not have to be every single day, especially if you just need to tap out. If you need to tap out for a day or 2 or 3, that's fine. Do it, because that is just as necessary as all of the practices. Get your recharge. You need to refuel. No matter what that looks like for you, that is a huge thing that we all need to do as parents. We need to fill our own cups and then let our children see us filling our own cups instead of seeing us stretched as thin as we tend to stretch ourselves. And ever since I started filling my own cup in front of them, they can fill their own cups too. And they keep me on track. Oh my goodness. Yes. You guys have no idea how many times, and if you guys start doing this, you'll figure it out. But there's so many times that my kids will remind me that I need to take a breath, or remind me about yoga because they are better self-regulators than I am, because I started teaching them at such a young age, and they're more impressionable at learning at such a young age than we are as adults. So that's another great way that kids can actually improve and help your practice, because they are more aware than we are, and they can't help it. It's just in their nature. They haven't been programmed out of all of that yet, which is what I love. I cannot wait for them to grow up and not be programmed out of their imagination, because they're not going to have to sit in a room for 8 hours a day being told to sit down and wear their uniform, and we're not here for socializing, even though the first thing people say when you tell them you're homeschooling, what about socialization? Well, you see, I have friends. There's homeschooling communities and parks. I live walking distance from 3 playgrounds. Like, it's fine. And when I move and get more land, and I don't live walking distance from some playgrounds, we're going to build a playground. We're going to open our house to be the homeschooling community. I'm already sort of doing like a preschool homeschool thing, with the kids I've got. I have my own 3 kids. I've got another kid or 2 that I babysit sometimes, all about the same age as mine. So whenever I have anyone else's kids, they just get to learn and play too. A lot of my activities are learning play activities, and then we go back and forth between, like, I don't know, the alphabet and numbers, right? To breathing and meditation techniques specifically for kids, and then back to playing. Like, we'll go outside and the kids are like, ooh, a leaf, and then we talk about that leaf for however long, and it's an amazing unstructured, structured environment. Okay, well, that's all I got for now. I look forward to hearing back from you, and I look forward to embarking on this amazing spiritual and parenting journey with you. You can find me on Spotify, Anchor, and probably more than that come second episode, third episode, and so on. Because this is a learning process for me as well. So bear with me, y'all. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Until next time, I'll see you later.